find relevant here to qualify it as counter-hegemonic is that it's built on collective distrust toward the institutions of our society.
But practically every political movement is built on distrust of institutions of modern society, including
I disagree. I don't think
all the
that,
non-MAGA leftists, et cetera, et cetera.
but I don't think, okay, what other movement?
Even the classes wearing like people embedded in universities and whatnot, they're pervaded upon by administration
Hold on.
and things of the sort. Nobody trusts the
No, I think they do trust
your
the mainstream, because the universities are one such institution, by the way. That's an example of the institutions of society. So you could say those institutions may be self.
Well, no, but the bare fact that somebody interfaces with an institution in society as a part of their job doesn't mean they therefore trust the integrity of that institution. For example, like institutions of straight and trained administrators who are not necessarily teachers or academics, and academics were often thwarted or bullied by those.
Okay.
Or vice versa. Like for example, a lot of women's studies departments were able to be
sure, there could be
were able to be
conflicts.
just hang on a second, were able to be negotiated on the grounds that some professor or someone somewhere was caught by literally his pants out in some scandal, and so they're covered up. They're like, here, I'll tell you what, you shut up.
I'm not denying the possibility of conflicts within institutions, but I think broadly speaking, and there's of course individual exceptions and everything, but broadly speaking, people who earn their living on the basis of working for these institutions tend to have a worldview defined by, broadly speaking, trust toward the integrity of the hegemony overall, and yes, of the ruling institutions of society.
But then why is the big bugbear of the MAGA movement critical theory? It's in the name. They're critical. What are they critical of? Well, they're critical specifically of institutions and received understandings of the natural
from a MAGA perspective, critical theory is not about critiquing institutions. It's about critiquing social norms.
Yeah, but that's because the MAGA perspective is based on total ignorance of the content of critical theory.
That may be true, and that may be not true, but as far as they're concerned, critical theory is a critique of the social norms of their everyday normal lives.
Sure, fine, fair enough. But then my question to you then though is, given that Marx indeed is one of the earlier, not the earliest, but one of the earlier inaugurators of that critical movement, why do you want to? He is. Why do you want to wed communism?
Criticism is just that just begins with the that's.
Criticism. No. You're way off there. Criticism goes way far back. Criticism goes all the way back to Rousseau, back to Machiavelli, who like recapitulates the underlying basis of states as being that which is. Sorry.
Marx employs criticism, of course, but critical race theory and this kind of stuff, MAGA is just.
Well, critical theory is the deployment of critical theory to race. The idea of critical theory as a concept that's fairly recent. But in terms of people having that critical.
So you're talking about the whole cultural Marxism thing? I don't know what you're referring to.
Well, I mean, we could also add that as well, but cultural Marxism goes farther than critical theory.
So these kind of right-wing populist catchphrases generally refer to trends that they perceive to be mounting a critique toward the normal everyday life of.
Sure, but why? Why do they perceive that though? It's not because they're all going to university and they're just seeing with their own eyes. Oh, the professors are teaching everybody.
Yeah, but I think we forgot the relevant point in contention, which is you use this.
Well, no. I'll tell you where this is coming from, though. The reason why they think that is because this is received wisdom from a massively moneyed media empire that is forcing this down their throats all the time.
Okay, I am willing to bet with you. However massively moneyed you think that media empire.
I know this because I'm a Canadian and I was pro-Trump a few years ago, as a result of the same dynamic.
Okay, again, let me finish. However massively moneyed you think that media empire is, it is dwarfed in terms of what revenues it can accrue by the mainstream media as an institution.
What are you talking about? That's patently untrue.
Okay, well, if you're going to refer to the decentralized information kind of flow of right-wing information on the internet, maybe as an aggregate it's more, I don't know. But in terms of, like, as a one block of a hegemony, there's no equivalent to the mainstream media that comes close, coming from the right.
right-wing media is
The closest you might get to is Tucker Carlson, who's part of Fox News, which is huge. But Tucker Carlson's the exception, not the norm, even when it comes to Fox News. So you're dealing with an overwhelming hegemony.
Let's see here. So there's a Forbes article from 20th of February, actually. So
Okay.
Fox has finished first with an average total audience for total daily ratings of 1.349 million viewers.
Yeah.
CNN has 524,000.
Yeah, Fox
This
is
is like an order of magnitude difference here.
right, but we're talking about the difference between, for example, success for audiences and on a market, and institutional hegemony. Institutional hegemony is actually, I mean, that actually benefits my argument because given how unpopular the
Well, CNN is multinational, so CNN is not institutional. CNN is just a news.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and ignore the comment that CNN is not institutional just for the sake
Well,
of
why wouldn't you say that Fox News is?
Because
They
CNN
they promote
both
president.
Fox and CNN are clearly institutional. Fox has managed to increase its ratings by allowing people like Tucker Carlson on the air, clearly, right? But in terms of, I mean, these are mainstream media companies that are all owned by these same corporations. So,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
yeah.
I'm interested in the definition of institution. When it comes to academia, professors have been variably pro or anti-institution, depending on the era and the context. Professors in Berlin were famously pro-Nazi. A lot of them were Nazis, which is weird. You'd think normally the professors are more progressive. Here in the States, there were plenty of leftist professors. That go further on. The economics profession has always been heavily institutionalized. I'm not entirely sure where these lines are. You say Tucker Carlson isn't institutional. When I think of Tucker Carlson, I think of a wealthy heir, admitted to being, a voice for the interest of billionaires, speaking on a very large institutional news network. Something distinguishes him in your mind. I'd like to know what.
Yeah, I mean, his background, he may be from the ruling elite in terms of his background, but the information he's putting out there is discontinuous. Clearly, at least everyone here would not object to the fact that it's extremely contentious in general from the perspective of the institutional hegemony. To define what institutional means, it doesn't just mean privileged. Institution refers to the specific way in which power is exerted over grouping individuals under a specific form.
So
right?
what does he disrupt then?
Well, objectively speaking, he's extremely contentious when it comes to how he's disrupting most of the information people get from the mainstream media. So most of the mainstream
What is mainstream when this is the most watched and most money platform?
because it's the most popular, but MSNBC, CNN, probably even other mainstream voices.
But what makes them mainstream?
Fox News. Okay, I'm trying to give an example.
Okay,
of that,
please.
Okay. All had a narrative about J6. Now Tucker Carlson, almost alone in terms of people.
Why is it so hard to say
That
January?
they do on television is going against that narrative. So here you have an example of a consensus on what J6 was, and Tucker Carlson is contradicting it. Now, regardless of whether you agree with Tucker Carlson or you think he's being honest, clearly he is going against the consensus of the mainstream.
Well, but you clearly think that the right wing makes up a large proportion of the population than the left wing, which is why you think it's of the working class and of the people, and why you think that
That's not why at all. That is absolutely not why.
Don't this look like
Wouldn't
news?
that definition of disruption then not have anything to do with institutional values? I mean, like John Oliver frequently does segments that are contrary to mainstream liberal values and a bunch of institutionally accepted stuff. Liberals, being as they are incapable of understanding systemic critique, probably find his points on slap lawsuits to be revolutionary. There's certainly a deviation from what normally gets talked about. Would that
I
too
don't think
be
those kind of,
anti-institutional?
but I don't think those deviations bleed over into antagonistic differences. Of course, there's a range of difference among and within hegemonies, but they don't become